I'm Eric Wolf, and my experience in business peer groups has changed my life, especially my membership in Vistage, one of the world's largest CEO advisory groups. I'm an entrepreneur, a business owner, and a Vistage speaker on the power of marketing. This podcast is dedicated to the people who make those experiences possible, the peer group chairs. Every episode, I interview a Vistage chair who has dedicated their time to helping entrepreneurs like me succeed. My guest today is Jeff Oak. Jeff hails from the state of New York, near my old stomping grounds growing up. He is a Vistage chair in Manhattan and in Long Island. And welcome to the big old podcast, Jeff.
Really delighted to be here, Eric.
Well, we'll see if you're still delighted when we're done. That'll be our that'll be our challenge.
Yes.
So you came. Your background is primarily in healthcare.
Yes.
So tell me about your journey to the wide world of healthcare and what you did there.
Sure. So again, thanks for being on the show and for this conversation. I started my career running a small medical facility in a very small town north of New York City, about an hour, in a very rather rural part of New York. And
is this like a Doc Hollywood type of situation?
No, I was on the board of directors actually of the local health system, because I was an ethics guy and they needed help with their ethics program and writing their code of conduct. I was happy to do that on a volunteer basis, and then the CEO and I got along, and she said, "Hey, I need somebody to run a facility." So I thought about it. I said, "Sure, let's give it a shot." And through that, I fell in love with healthcare. I very soon thereafter did a consulting gig at a boutique firm that did turnarounds, and then the rest of my career, I was working for very large health systems that had gotten into trouble and needed one form of turning around or another. In some cases, they had gotten in very deep legal trouble. In some cases, they had gotten into trouble due to the misconduct of a leader or some other regulatory matter. And really had a wonderful career. I developed a niche for doing these turnarounds in very complex kind of situations. And the favorite job description I had was the role was to create a culture of integrity across the entire company. So that was kind of a cool gig. That was a very large turnaround over an extended period of time. It was within the healthcare trade press. It was kind of big news about the trouble they had gotten into and gotten out of over time. And we were subsequently recognized as one of the world's most ethical companies, about 120 companies that year from all industries all over the world. And that and other things attracted the interest of another health system who eventually acquired us. And I did the integration for that acquisition and decided that I didn't want to continue, that I had kind of done the work that I could do there. And that's when Vistage found me. And so I've been a Vistage chair ever since.
So I want to, there were a few things you said that were interesting. So number one, you won an award for being the most ethical company. How did it score such a thing?
Well, that's a great question. Through many, many variables. Our submission was 7 4-inch binders.
Wow.
We had to provide documentation about training, about how we process complaints and grievances, our process for vetting board members, our process for educating board members, our process for building cultural sensibilities around what the company's core values were. There were probably 25 measures ranging across financial practices, governance practices, training practices, and they wanted documentation of all those things. I had no idea what our odds were, but we were fortunate to be recognized.
And this was before the days of AI, so somebody actually had to read all of that.
Somebody had to read all that.
That's
somebody had to put it all together.
Wow.
We provided a whole bunch of policies. I mean, it was an unbelievable volume of documentation that was required.
What is, and I noticed on your in your bio that you actually served as a chief ethics officer.
Yes.
What is the day-to-day of a chief ethics officer at a medical company? It's one of those. It's one of those things where I guess sort of we think as consumers and, Hippocratic Oath, like that the ethics of medicine are sort of built in. But I am gathering that it's a whole lot more complex than that.
I think both are true. I think in many respects, values are embedded into the delivery of healthcare because of the nature of the work. The organization happened to be a nonprofit. It was a $3 billion company, so it was very large. And we competed with publicly traded companies. So we had to recruit. We had to have the people that were every bit as good as the ones that they had. We had to meet all of our financial metrics, all of our clinical metrics, every metric that a publicly traded company has to follow. Plus, we had to demonstrate that the work that we were doing was in the public interest.
Gotcha.
So in that respect, healthcare is unique among industries because there is a certain ethical foundation that's really built into it. That's not to say that companies that are not healthcare organizations don't have those things baked in, but in a particular way in healthcare, that's historically been true for a long time. And there are a whole host of processes and systems and practices to help assure that the company honors that. It reflects those values in the day-to-day operations. Everything from how you hire someone to how you fire something to how you create a bill, how you collect a bill, how you treat staff, how the staff treats patients. I mean, it's a whole range of things that's validating that the individuals and the company is doing all that it aspires and proclaims to be doing.
You also mentioned your history as a turnaround executive, which I think is a very underrated, misunderstood sort of type of expertise. What do you feel made you suited for that sort of work? Because it is different and it is special.
Yes, and let me say, I appreciate your interest, and let me say, if you talk to anyone who's been involved in doing a merger or a major turnaround, very early in that conversation, the issue of culture is going to come up.
Yep.
And I've heard it said that if the culture's not right, no merger will work, just because culture trumps strategy, all the stuff that we hear. So forget about my ethics background and just think about turnarounds. The very nature of turnarounds, they are fundamentally, it's a culture change activity. It's leading change, very significant change, very difficult change.
Yep.
And it becomes visible through financial practices, operational practices, governance practices, a whole range of things. There's only a half step away from that to doing ethical turnarounds. I mean, we were doing ethical turnarounds, but the reason they got in trouble usually was financial.
Mm-hmm.
We were just kind of going upstream in an intentional, self-conscious, and unapologetic way to the roots of financial performance, operational performance, employee engagement. All the stuff that we value in companies are really rooted in a cultural foundation. And so, why, on one hand, it might seem a little unusual, but when you step back, it actually makes a great deal of sense.
Yep. Oh, very cool. So you mentioned that Vistage found you. How did that work, and how did you first get introduced to Vistage?
So I was a big company guy. We had extensive infrastructure relating to organizational development, the development of people, all sorts of things. That we had a cadre of in-house coaches that we could access. We were trained on all manner of tools, and I was really, really lucky because that company that I was at for the longest period of time, where we did the major turnaround that resulted in that award, it was a very strong company in terms of its integrity and its ethical commitments and the like. So I had been fortunate to have a lot of training, and I didn't know a lot about the small business arena. Very, very early in my career, the first thing I did was a very small medical facility,
Right.
where I had to get the staff, and if staff didn't show up, I had to put on a smock and kind of go around and take care of our residents. It was a residential facility, and so I knew I had some acquaintance.
I'm guessing that when you put on the smock, though, there wasn't any surgery being performed or anything like that. Just
there was no surgery. It was activities of what we call activities of daily living. Help.
I hope that this isn't how you learned about medical ethics, but
no. So
no, I get it.
Yeah. So I didn't know much about the small business world, and a very, very good friend of mine who had also been involved indirectly in that major turnaround. He was one of the factors that influenced me accepting that job at the big turnaround, the biggest turnaround that I did. And I was at an inflection point, and he was at an inflection point, and we were living in different states, and we just had a way of keeping in touch and chatting. And he said, you ought to check out this Vistage thing. I said, well, I'd never heard of it. Right. So he told me about it, and he said, would you be interested in learning more? And I said, sure. He and I went to the same college. Turns out he knew a chair who also went to the college that we went to, and he said, I'm setting an appointment as an information session. Would you like to join? I said, sure. And what really drew me to Vistage was the leadership philosophy is one that I resonated with. Mm-hmm. That organization that I had been a part of and had a wonderful experience held the view that leadership effectiveness is mostly a function of the person of the leader. It's not reading a bunch of business magazines. Well, here's what a power pose looks like. Do this, or whatever. It was the real. This was the real deal. This was the real deal. Like it was about authenticity. It was about candor. It was about being direct. It was about holding people accountable in a respectful manner. It was establishing of equal importance the results you get and how you achieve those results. So I find Vistage to be an extremely value-laden platform to leadership, which resonated with me. And so there was a lot of attraction to my initial understanding and exposure to the Vistage model and framework and philosophy of leadership. So it was highly aligned with my own view, and then I love the model. I was at a stage at that point, and still a stage in my life where I had the good fortune of having a lot of success, and I was a little bit more focused. I was more focused on what's my legacy, what do I want to give back, what does paying forward look like for me, and Vistage allows me to do that to an extraordinary degree. So those are the things that both introduced me to Vistage, and which I found extremely compelling then and now in terms of the model.
And I believe also based on some things that you sent me, that Vistage also and the work that you do within Vistage is also very strongly connected with your personal why, your
Yes.
your raison d'etre. I don't know how to pronounce that correctly, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
tell me about that.
Very much so. So there are a couple dimensions to it. I think one key one relates to legacy, and legacy for me asks the question, what will endure after we're gone? And I find that that's a dominant question for me at this stage in my life, as it is for many when they're my age in the neighborhood. And I find that the leaders I work with, are asking that question. And my why is really helping people to build the life they want. And what I've come to understand from my members is that having a successful company is table stakes. It's the minimum. It's necessary for a feeling of success, but not sufficient. And there are some other things that I have discovered are extremely important to my members, and one of them is the legacy that they are living and that they will leave behind. And there are some other things too. You know, my members, they want their health. It's very difficult running a small business, and many leaders that I work with suffer from slippage, which is, they don't eat well a lot of times. They don't sleep well a lot of times.
Sure.
They don't exercise, and they're struggling with that. They also, as a result of the demands, sometimes relationships are strained. If you have financial success without meaningful relationships, that success rings hollow.
Mm-hmm.
I find so many of my leaders are looking to have more control of their time. What they'll say is, I want more time. And then I just remind them, hey, you can't get more time. It's, what are you doing with the time that you have? And they want that time not only for reflection on the strategy of their company, but they want that time to do the things they love with the people they love. So they want more control of their time. They want a good reputation. They
Sure.
want to be the guy or the gal who's respected in the community. They want there to be an alignment between their public image and their private actions. These are all things that give me enormous energy and satisfaction, helping people to find their way to building the life that they want in all of these many dimensions. It's not just getting your EBITDA up, although it includes that.
Sure.
But that's necessary but not sufficient for a life well lived.
You've got a number of different groups. You've got a CE group.
Yes.
You've got a small business group. You've got a key group. You've got a Vistage Inside group. You're also building another small business group with my friend Mark Taylor. What do you find is different about your job? Obviously, there's a lot of similarities going group to group, but what's different for you in working with, say, a Vistage Inside group versus a group of key executives versus a CE or SB group where you're dealing with the owner of the company?
Great question, Eric. And it's what makes being a Vistage Chair fascinating. It's intellectually challenging. There's opportunity for creativity, and it's fundamentally, for me, it's a craft. It's a vocation. It's not just a kind of a job that I do. What what all the many groups have in common is the peer advisory model. That when leaders are put together with peers who are objective and who are committed to their success, not only their own success, but the success of the people in the group, and the conditions are created within that group for honesty and vulnerability and candor, it's an extraordinary learning environment. So that is what is common to all of the groups that you mentioned. What's different about those groups is who the peers are. And when I'm talking to a candidate, I'll say to them, look, I don't know what the in many cases, I don't know what the right group for them is yet because I haven't learned enough yet. But I'll say, I don't know what the right group for you is. But if you're willing to explore that, I am. And I'll say what they have in common is the peer model, but it's finding the right peer group and peer set for you. And one of the reasons I like having the diversity of different groups that I have is that I have many options that I can offer to a candidate, and my hope is that one of them will be appropriate for them. If one is not appropriate for them, let's say they're an emerging leader or an advancing leader, then I'll refer them to one of my Vistage colleagues. But I want to have options for the people I talk to so that they are in the right room for them. And that's what's different about the different groups. For me, it's not a function of revenue only. It's not a function of what the number of employees are only. It's not even necessarily what their title reads.
Right.
But it's what questions are they asking and what are they trying to solve for?
The Vistage Inside groups are one that I always find fascinating, because this is not a peer group of people from different companies, which is the norm at Vistage. You've got a group of leaders from a single company, and these are folks who, unlike when I go to Vistage every month, these are people that have to live with each other every day.
Yep.
How I'd be curious about your impressions of running that group versus the traditional Vistage group.
Yeah, it is distinct from the others, and the peer advisory still applies, though in a different manner. So they are peers in the sense that they are in the same company, and they've experienced the same culture, and the same successes and failures and the like. Where it can become, one needs to take a little different approach, is in the processing of individual issues, because it's theoretically possible that someone in the group might have an issue that pertains to someone else in that group, where it would not be a suitable and appropriate setting for them to process that issue with the other person in the room, or to say, well, you got to leave, Eric, because this is really about you.
Right.
There's the old awkward, but I, in this particular Vistage Inside group, and I think in any future Vistage Inside group that I do, I would be, I will not do it if it does not include some one-to-ones where there is the privacy to talk with them about what they're struggling with, and even though it's not possible or appropriate, to process it in the group. And there are still a breathtakingly large amount of resources that I can provide to a person in that position. I could make lots of introductions to other people who maybe have dealt with the same thing.
Yep.
And then lots of resources in the form of listening and understanding and offering suggestions and clarifying questions and the like.
Very cool. I've really enjoyed this conversation. Before I let you go, I would be remiss if I did not ask you about one of your hobbies. You enjoy growing oysters.
Yes.
How does one decide that you're going to grow oysters, and how do you get started with such a thing?
Well,
and I love oysters.
I can just describe how I got started. I got started because my daughter and son-in-law gave me a gift 2 Christmases ago, and the gift was 1 year as a participant in an oyster reclamation project run by Cornell Cooperative Extension.
Okay.
It both, like all cooperative extensions around the country, they provide economic benefit and many, many other different kinds of benefits. I live on the water, obviously. I love oysters. And there are 500 other people like me who care about the health of our beautiful, beautiful bays on the eastern Long Island. And oysters, one oyster will filter 50 gallons of water per day. And they are filtering excess nutrients. And when you have a thriving oyster population, you have a thriving maritime health. And when you have few oysters, it goes in the other direction. And the benefit is I do what I do, and then I get to eat. I get to eat the fruits of my labor.
I was going to say I can't. This isn't a hobby that I could participate in Denver. But if you ever need help with the oyster removal, I would be happy to volunteer. Little known fact that the whole, not just Long Island, but the whole New York Harbor area once had so many oysters that not only was it poor people food, but they used to pave the streets in New York City with oyster shells. It was a ubiquitous part of the ecosystem that now people have forgotten.
Yes. No, it's a bit of a throwback. I mean, my wife, who grew up where we now live, remembers going swimming, and she would scallops. They swim like this.
Yeah.
They kind of swim through the water. They're not sitting on the bottom. They're swimming through the water, and her sort of legs being tickled by them in the water. There were so many. And what's wonderful, all kidding aside, I love oysters, and I did host a social event invited all my members and their families, and bring your kids, bring your dogs, and they did all of that.
Nice.
And I treated them to Oysters Rockefeller and Oysters on the Half Shell. We had a great time. So my members, at least those who like oysters, which is a lot of them, get a chance to benefit from.
That sounds delightful.
But it is important to me. It's one way that I give back, is just helping make these maritime ecosystems more healthy than they otherwise might be. So.
Oh, that's terrific. And Jeff, it's been a real pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for being a great guest. If folks have questions about any of your groups or the new one that you're starting, if folks want to know more about medical ethics or how to properly grow oysters, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Probably the best thing would be my website, jeffoak.com.
Awesome.
JEFF Oak, one word.com.
We will link that in the show notes as well. Thanks for being a great guest, Jeff. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Eric. I appreciate the opportunity. The pleasure's mine.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Chairwaves. You can subscribe to our feed using Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your platform of choice. You can also visit chairwaves.com for more information. Chairwaves is hosted and produced by me, Eric Wolf, and to connect with me, you can visit my website at ewolf.live. That's EWOLF.live. And a disclaimer, While I love Vistage and CEO peer groups, this podcast is not owned by or affiliated with Vistage or any other peer organization. Thanks for listening.